Welcome back to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. Time now to turn to Simon Dixon of BankToTheFuture.com, an equity crowdfunding site which has recently passed $10 million in funds raised. This is a fantastic time. Simon, welcome back to the Keiser Report.
Always good to be here, Max.
All right, let's talk about Greece. How can Bitcoin help the people in Greece? How can it help the government? Simon Dixon.
Well, last time we were interviewing, we were discussing some of the key properties of Bitcoin and what happened with the Cyprus bail-in crisis last time. Well, we're starting to see the same again. This week, we had in a very short period of time, there was about a 7% spike in the price of Bitcoin, which coincided with the announcements of what they're calling the Grexit and the Greek announcements at the moment. So I started to research this and speak to some of the people on the inside at some of the exchanges. And one of the people that we are interviewing for our Crowd Factor show, he runs an exchange called Voltaru, and he reported that in terms of IP addresses where people are coming from on his exchange, there's about 165% increase in Greeks going to the exchange.
Well, you know, as a public service on this show, we've been warning Greeks for more than a year that this was coming. As soon as Syriza came into office in the beginning of this year, I knew and stated categorically that there would be a Grexit or a default on that debt, and that probably there would have some haircuts coming for deposits and a bail-in similar to what we saw in Cyprus. So we gave ample warning to the people of Greece. The easiest way to preserve any wealth that they might have is to put it onto a Bitcoin blockchain, and that gives them the ability to move that money out of the country if they need to, or move it anywhere they want to, outside of the kleptocrats in Germany, outside of the vultures of the IMF. The IMF has now been essentially defaulted on, the first time in their history, from what I gather. So Christine Lagarde is going to have to find a real job, paying, I don't know, maybe she could be a hot dog seller on the Côte d'Azur or something. Now, at the FT event this week, Citigroup's global chief economist said that Greece adopting Bitcoin would be the stupidest idea since Caligula made a horse his counsel. Now, of course, the FT has a vested interest in this position, but what are your thoughts?
Well, it probably coincides with the same time that they're starting to pump out press releases about launching Citicoin. So, you know, the properties of Bitcoin, it's a very funny thing. So you're seeing the UK government want to launch their own coins. You're seeing the banks want to launch their own coins now. But the two major selling points and the reason why it's attractive for people in Greece is that, you know, the first thing is you own your own money, which means that with your Bitcoins, there's no censorship. You control them. There's no closing the bank. There's no closing the blockchain. They're yours no matter what. And in Greece, the banks are closed. They can't access their deposits. The second feature is it's person to person, it's peer to peer. So you control where those flow. And what you're going to see with, you know, Citi coin or UK government coin is you're going to see a censored blockchain with a single point of failure where it can be hacked, just like JP Morgan and RBS and all the banks get hacked. And also, it will be the worst of both worlds because you probably won't even get the deposit insurance that you have with traditional banking. So literally, trying to compete with Bitcoin, it will just be a very interesting failure, epic failure to watch.
Yeah, the banks suddenly realized that Bitcoin's going to put them out of business. Jamie Dimon famously said, Bitcoin's going to eat our lunch. He took Blythe Masters, his #1 lieutenant, put her over there to create and to be organizing a Bitcoin company. She's now on the lobbying group in Washington, the Bitcoin lobbying group that she's now involved with. They're now orchestrating a smear campaign. The FT, this is clear propaganda. They never understood it to begin with. They've been told from their overlords to smear it. And I understand internally the core developers of Bitcoin have been contacted, guys like Gavin Andreessen. Essentially, the rumor is that this whole block size controversy is an attempt to destabilize Bitcoin, orchestrated by Blythe Masters, the FT, the Economist, all the schmucks, the shillelagh stick-wielding psychos up there in the Eurocratic, sclerotic cesspool of bureaucrats and ne'er-do-wells are trying to get rid of this competition. But I think the Bitcoin will triumph in the end. As you point out, their version of Bitcoin relies on you trusting them, just like you have to trust them now. And the reason why Bitcoin is successful is because it removes that. It's distributed trust. You don't have to trust Christy Lagarde. You don't have to trust a known psychopath.
Well, Bitcoin is completely neutral. It doesn't care about your sexual preference. It doesn't care about what color you are. It doesn't care what you're spending your money on. It doesn't care whether you have an ID. It doesn't care whether you're rich. Citicoin will certainly care whether you're rich.
What you're referring to there is that when banks now, politically speaking, if you have an account there, like Julian Assange or someone who's a whistleblower, they just freeze your account based on their censoring. They're censoring your money, is what you're referring to, and this avoids that.
Absolutely. So they'll decide who can use the coin, what you can use it for, and to me that's a step backwards. And why would you choose that coin over Bitcoin when you can have full control over your own assets?
Right. Clearly, the use case for Greeks is clear, but there's a huge campaign to try to steer them away from this because they don't want Greece to be independent country. They want them to be a debt slave from the EMF. And the IMF, and these others. Now, you're about to head off to Hong Kong, flying there to take Bank to the Future and the entire enterprise to make it global. So you'll have the first global equity crowdfunding platform in the world. And, of course, Bitcoin is a gateway into that platform. And so you've kind of vertically integrated an entire solution to the crooks in the city of Wall Street and in Wall Street in New York using crypto and everything you know from banking. How is that going?
Well, we're building, I don't even like the word equity crowdfunding. It's becoming more of an online investment platform. We're creating a way for people to hedge against some of the challenges ahead in the financial crisis, and alternative types of companies to invest in, alternative funds. We got Bitcoin Capital, which raised $1.5 million to invest in blockchain businesses, and a $5 million tranche was actually launched as well. Last month, we had $4 million invested through the platform in 1 month, which is a record for us at the moment, and that's continually growing. We're not just allowing people to invest in companies using their cryptos, using whatever method they want. We're building, the alternative financial and focusing on that financial innovation and technology, because we want to create a home for a lot of this technology to get funded, to make the impact in finance that it can actually have, without having to actually go to the Barclays accelerator and sell equity to Barclays, who are going to gobble them up and look at how they can, either eliminate them or integrate them and centralize their technology and use it for the profit and the bottom line. I said at a recent conference, I was invited to discuss investing and the trends in Bitcoin and blockchain at the moment. And I said, I'm way more interested in funding the things that make banks much less significant than funding technology that allows for a cheaper way for banks to continue to commit crime.
Have you been surprised at the success of Startcoin? Because Startcoin, a few months ago, when we first started working with Bank to the Future and Bitcoin Capital, it was worth $1 million. Now it's worth over $4 million.
Yeah, so the Bitcoin Capital investors are happy. We were in very early. We've been accumulating. We're still accumulating. We still think it's undervalued.
So Bitcoin Capital is still buying Startcoin?
We still think it's undervalued. We think there's a lot more value there.
So it's got about a $4 million market cap. I think it could get to a market cap similar to a Stellar, which is in the 16 million market cap area, or maybe even a Doge, between 16 and 20 million for those coins. I think Startcoin could get to that market cap. Your thoughts?
Well, I think the Startcoin ecosystem is building something very valuable. It's got an incredibly useful case, which is this whole crowdfunding. It's funding things, people are getting it for free. StartJoin, you give them away free to pledge
we give away free coins every day.
At Bank to the Future, we've been giving away 100 coins. Those are worth a lot more for the people that got them in the beginning to invest in companies. You can use them to invest in Bitcoin Capital. So it's creating a very interesting user case.
We give away 100 coins for people on the site, so that's worth $160 now.
Yeah.
And we've been giving away like candy.
Yeah, it's important to say that, investing in altcoins is a very high-risk, volatile thing, so you should never be investing more than you can afford to lose. But in terms of my personal investments, this has been the highest performing asset class of the year for me.
Right, so not only could the Greek people preserve their wealth, but had they timed their crypto purchases well, they would have doubled or tripled their wealth. and they would give them the ability to, make moves on Germany. Germany is an economy that's mired in the legacy systems. I mean, Greece has a chance to break free. If Greece went on the blockchain, they could be the most dynamic, fastest-growing economy in the world. Yanis Varoufakis, the finance minister, is a very smart guy. He's talked about crypto. He's talked about blockchain technology. I think the shock of 2015 yet to come. Yanis Varoufakis will announce that Greece is going to adopt blockchain technology, either through a new currency issuance or through the administrative back end of their central bank facilitation or some budgetary, like we're doing at George Galloway. We're putting George Galloway, we've created mayorschain.com. So George Galloway is going to, he's running for mayor. He's going to put the entire procurement process for the entire city on the blockchain called the Mayor's Chain for transparency and accountability. We think we've actually got a Freedom of Information Act request to find out how Boris Johnson procures information technology contracts right now. We're pretty sure he's got about 100 to 150 million pounds of waste that we're going to sort out just in the next 2 or 3 months. So we got about a minute left. And first of all, your thoughts on Greece kind of going crypto and becoming the most dynamic, fastest growing economy in the world?
Well, what they need to do is they need to go to Iceland, they need to sit down with the Icelandic government and MPs, and they need to take some advice from them. In Iceland, they're chucking out the bankers, they're sending them to prison, they're suing them for counterfeiting their money, they're avoiding, and now they're looking at this whole peer-to-peer space, this whole crypto space.
It's amazing they are suing them for counterfeiting money.
Absolutely.
Because they're saying fractional reserve banking is, in essence, counterfeiting.
And that's a precedent that I think Greece should follow, and they should build their own currency. They should put transparency into that. And they got the opportunity to be the leaders in the world in terms of finance.
So,
London,
yeah, Varoufakis and they can sue Merkel for counterfeiting.
They can do that. Why not?
They're using the Icelandic precedent.
The banks are creating money every time they issue a loan. And that's the basis for how their money's created. If the Greece now has an opportunity to engineer a system from scratch, nobody would have chosen, let's allow banks to create money, issue loans, and that's the basis of our entire economy. Crazy, that's why they are, that's why Iceland's growing, and that's why Greece has the opportunity to...
It's beyond Ponzi scheme. It's counterfeiting.
Yeah, and Greece has the opportunity now to lead the world.
All right, Simon Dixon, thanks again for being on the Keiser Report.
Thanks for having me, Max.
That's going to do it for this episode of the Keiser Report with me, Max Keiser, and Stacey Herbert. I'd like to thank our guest, Simon Dixon of banktothefuture.com. If you'd like to get in touch, tweet us at Keiser Report. Until next time, bye, y'all.